in writing. Good evening for those of you joining us on YouTube, lagging only a few minutes behind Twitter. I'm Rob Anderson, running for the U.S. House of Representatives in Louisiana's 3rd Congressional District. Coming at you live from our news setup. You see our nice little sign back here. And you see my nice campaign manager here. This is Claire Stagg joining us tonight for the opening segment. We have some stuff we want to address this week.
Ask questions because you can't hear me otherwise.
That's a good point. And we've established from, and I'm bumping this, from doing these a few times that these modern laptops, the directional mic is so precise so you can hear me fine, but if you move a foot off to the side, you can't hear. So Claire will be joining us for the first segment. Of course, she's always behind the scenes. Now you get to meet her as well. So we're going to start off this week talking about stuff that's been going on in the world. And there's a lot of things, but we've got a couple specifically we're going to talk about. First of all is, of course, the Black Lives Matter protests and how they've been going on around the country, and they've really reached down here in Louisiana. Our team has been to 2 in Lafayette, one just this past week, where even pouring rain and a thunderstorm didn't deter people. It was a great event of solidarity, seeing all the people coming out. It was very well organized. For one thing, they had the streets blocked off properly around Girard Park at the University of Lafayette, and they and obviously completely peaceful, and everybody was there in solidarity and love. And it's really good to see. This is a national movement. Louisiana's right there in it, standing up for our Black brothers and sisters, and their request to look at the systemic racism that is causing people to die at the hands of the police. I mean, there's no way to talk around it. Nobody's attacking cops, and we'll get into all that later. The counter messaging is coming back that, to be pro BLM is to be anti the blue line, which is nonsensical, and it's their way of avoiding the argument. It's authoritarian, it's creepy. Literally talking about the state killing people without oversight, or not even without oversight. They're not allowed to, and that's what we'll talk about. So we had the ones locally were organized, of course, by the NAACP and Move the Mindset and the Student Action Organizing Committee from UL. So we wanted to give them a shout out. They've done a great job on each of the ones we've been at, and I'm very proud of Louisiana for how we're stepping up in this national event that's happening, and we're really taking our part. And good evening, Chris. I see we had our first comment on the YouTube live. Then we're going to go on to some really important stuff. The Supreme Court has been working this week, and in surprising ways, and of course made the news, so most of you know about this. Obviously, there was the Bostock, or is it Bostock? Bostock versus Clayton decision, of course, which affected the LGBT rights. Specifically, the decision came down that an employer cannot discriminate based on sex, which was written in Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, of course, and that was applied to LGBT rights as well. It was actually a shocking blow for the conservative movements who were trying to discriminate, and a sort of conservative Supreme Court actually did the right thing in a 6-3 decision. So it was magnificent during Pride Month to see that. It was really gratifying for people standing up for the rule of law and human rights, and they did it the right way. If you look at it, the Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act allowed that you cannot discriminate on basis of sex, which by definition, said the Supreme Court, includes sexual orientation.
Gender identity was like the big
one. Right, gender identity was
that they didn't, the question was whether they would interpret discrimination of sex and to mean like your sex assigned at birth, or if it included sexual orientation and gender identity, and they read the law as it's written and interpreted that it does include gender identity and sexual orientation. So there is a problem with that still, though, on the discrimination side, Rob. And what is that? Okay. Well, so the issue is that 36 states are still at low employment states.
Right. The problem was not at the federal level. I was thinking there was a problem inherent in the Supreme Court decision. Yes. The problem is it's not enough. There are still 36 states, as Claire mentioned, that have at will firing policies. That those states, what that means, and down in the ground, so to speak, down at our local level, is they can still fire you for being gay or transgender. They just call it something else. So we definitely need Congress to get involved here, and we need to put in a federal unifying protections so that there can't be these loopholes, these at-will states, which are literally empowering employers to fire you for whatever reason they feel like with no cause. And up to being pro-worker, we're anti that.
Yeah, the issue is that while Rob could not fire me tomorrow for anything having to do with like my sexual orientation, not if he would, to do that and then say it's because like my shoes are ugly or he just felt like it, or
You have great shoes.
Thursday or something.
Yeah, Thursday. On the other hand, as Arthur Dent said, never could get the hang of Thursdays. If it's going to happen.
So yeah, we need like a federal law for at will employment.
Agreed. And
you can make any kind of discrimination you'd like illegal, but there's always
in 36 out of our 50 states, obviously. And we won't even get into there should be 52 states because that's a separate, that'll be a whole other swamp side. I think there should be more states, not less, but that's a whole separate issue. But while it was a fantastic example of the separation of powers in our government, the Supreme Court actually did the right thing. It is also a demonstration that other branches now need to step up. And since we are running for Congress, it absolutely applies that we need to get this into Congress. Those same protections that the Supreme Court just granted should also be legislated, should be put into law.
There was a second Supreme Court. Well, not a decision, a non-decision.
Yeah, we talked about that.
We did not talk about that.
No, not yet. You and I talked about it earlier.
Trying to give me a segue, Robert.
She's trying to give me a segue here. She's saying, move on to the next one. What had happened, obviously, if you've been following the Supreme Court, or even if you haven't, excuse me, video froze up. Hopefully it unfroze. Are we going good on Twitter? Okay. So we're going to proceed as if people can hear us. If not, we'll just periodically and pretend we're freezing just to make everybody feel we want to be inclusive. The Supreme Court this week declined to re-examine Baxter versus Bracey, is the one we're talking about. And what that could have done is it could have ended qualified immunity for law enforcement. Obviously, it did not. What that means is qualified immunity allows officers to get off the hook for violating someone's civil rights or violating someone's rights if the law was not clearly established. So we still have our work cut out for us, obviously. So while the Supreme Court was good on one decision, here we have the law enforcement still has qualified immunity to violate your rights. They're pretty much allowed to.
Qualified immunity, it's tricky because a lot of the time in cases involving qualified immunity, they'll find that like somebody's rights were violated, whether by law enforcement or any government official, but that the law was not clearly stated enough that the illegality of their actions fit into like some kind of statute that we could bring a suit against. So we need to end that, and then the legislature tried to tackle it. And how did that go?
Oh yeah, the Louisiana legislature, which is always fun to talk about. It's always our favorite part of the show. Today they killed HB 51, which specifically you summarized it as the states and courts cannot change the law, so Congress has to.
That was a footnote for Rob. Okay. It was basically a bill to just on the state level in qualified immunity, and it got killed despite a lot of like support. A lot of organizations rallied for it. I know I have some friends that showed up and put in green cards and stuff. They ended up getting like 180 cards in support, 9 against, and it still failed. So that tells you something about the state legislature.
I read the summary too fast. I forgot it was the same part of the same thing. Now, did they follow the Supreme Court on that? Do you think they were waiting for their decision and then just killed it at the state level?
I'm
just curious. You're the what?
Well, so I mean,
Louisiana legislature to vote against the will of the people.
Thing that always does, whether it's money or political pressure. This bill had been up before. They'd been working on it since before the Supreme Court decided to not re-examine that. Just because regardless of what they had decided, it would be good for our state to tackle it themselves. And there was, a lot of buy-in from regular people on this. They decided to move forward with that, and the special session's going to end pretty soon. So that's
they won't
for next year.
Yeah, they won't be tackling it again this year, is what it sounds like.
I don't know that they'll ever tackle it, which is kind of what it's important that Congress does things like this, which is kind of where we come in.
That's where we come in. On the federal level, these need to be addressed still. A lot of times reading the news means interpreting all the things that are happening, and they snowball so fast. And again, we just did a summary on all this, and I'm still, overwhelmed just trying to keep up with the news. So that's what we're trying to do for you, is we're going to go to Congress and we're going to work on these things that they try to slip by and they sneak by. And a lot of times people don't even know which way the decision came, especially with the administration we have now, which does not prioritize telling the truth.
And then we, more importantly, we finally today. Choke holds and having policies about, fire and stuff like that. And this GOP bill basically disincentivized it as if like it weren't already disincentivized.
Right. They can only use a choke hold if they really, really need to, which is pretty much the same standard now.
Banning it, it's half measures from the GOP as usual.
As usual, they didn't really address it while saying that they addressed it. And that's a lot of times it's the fine details. People don't understand about messaging. The GOP is coming out law and order and authoritarian, and they say these things which do absolutely nothing and have no effect on the local level. Doesn't encourage community policing, doesn't ban chokeholds altogether, which is for, I think specifically what we're talking about is the baton across the throat, or is it putting someone in a chokehold whatsoever?
Basically regulations about use of force, but it didn't ban any of them. It just discouraged.
It discouraged them unless you really have to, if your own life is in danger, which is where we are now. Need better rules of engagement, kind of like the military has. The outcome of a meeting between a police officer of the law and a citizen should not be a dead citizen. Almost literally, unless that citizen pulls a gun on that police officer. The life and danger, we all face dangers, crossing the road. We've done it at work, and I'm not making light of any of that. But serving the public means, you're out there serving the public. Your job is not to suppress the public, and certainly not to take their life. Hey, Rob, give them hell in November, brother. You bet. Joker. Have we done any polls in our district? No, we are existing currently in the time of COVID-19, as we all know, which has changed many, I don't want to throw out fancy words, paradigms, but certainly there's been no polling done yet. We haven't even had qualifying.
Yeah, so for people who are in Louisiana,
we have a weird way of doing it. So she's
going to doesn't have partisan primaries. So like a lot of states are having their primaries for these races right now.
Except for the presidential.
Which we'll have on June 11th. But
after both parties have already been nominated, but go on.
But here, how it works is we will qualify in July for office. That's the only time when we're going to know really who all is on the ballot, though we have a pretty good idea. And instead of having a primary where they'll pick one Democrat and one Republican candidate, all candidates of all parties run on one ticket on November 3rd.
Yep.
And if nobody, in this case, it's not going to happen, but sometimes it happens that if you have a bunch of candidates, nobody gets 50% of the vote plus one, then those two candidates will advance to a runoff against each other in December. I don't see that happening this time. We basically have pretty much a two-way race. It's looking like
that's what we're hoping for.
But yeah, we don't have primaries, so everything is delayed. So we kind of try to wait till qualifying to know for sure everyone who's on the ballot is to not waste.
Right. So therefore, utilizing our resources properly, we're adapting the times. We're running. We know we're running just legally according to Louisiana to qualify, which is done at the Secretary of State's office in Baton Rouge in July. She said, I believe it's July 20th, but we can firm up that date. Our presidential primary is July 11th, and I think it's the 20th for qualifying. And at that point, then you're officially on the ballot and you're locked in for November. And then we can start really investing in the calling that we need to do and the polls and all the tools that will be available to us. Until then, right now, I assume I'm going out on a limb that right now Clay Higgins is leading. as the incumbent. Although we do have we're giving them hell as a startup. I'll tell you what. But no, we haven't. Not long way of saying no. We have not done any polls yet. Sorry. Stay tuned. Yeah, there will be polls, of course.
Let's see if you got some questions.
Dave had forwarded the one. Did I forward it? I can't. It's on my phone. Why don't you text him and ask? And I'm trying to remember what it was that the question was there. So I'm gonna have to freewheel here for a second. We'll talk about a couple of things that have been going on while you're digging up that question. This last week we gave our first soft opening, shall we say, in person for our campaign since the COVID quarantine began. As you know, most politics typically done door to door, knocking, getting out events, local civic venues, and a lot of in face. That's how politicking is done. It's the only way to really reach voters is face to face. And of course, right now with the quarantine, all that is set back. So we did a soft opening. Around a dozen people there. It was a very nice, quiet event, but just local influencers and a lot of people had to beg off even from that due to exposure to COVID-19 and being in quarantine because a family member had it and things like that. My opponent is Clay Higgins, who's the incumbent here in LA3. By the way, sure.
Could you there and see if there's an option to turn commenting on the live on? I just noticed it was on.
Some comments.
Well, there's replies.
That's coming from YouTube. I didn't realize this our comments.
So,
here, bring it over here. Bring it over here. Sorry, you get to.
First time to do this.
This is the first time live tweeting, so you get to see it as we do it. So we got 18 people watching. Is it one of these buttons? Invite guests. Don't allow guests. No, we don't want either one of those.
Go to comment.
Ask for follow, ask for share, guest list, or theater mode, flip camera.
Broadcast details.
And maybe live viewers. There's a few on.
Anybody know how to turn our commenting on?
There's had 783 viewers total, so people are watching, but I don't.
Click the comment thing, Rob.
Which one? This one?
It says comments are off. Give you
Scroll for comments. Let's see, that's there. No, that's emojis. That's people who've been in there. Sure, go ahead. That's a very interesting. Hey, it's 2020. We're working with what we got. Hey, Twitter. I'm still here. We're just trying to figure out how to set it up so y'all can comment and interact at the same time. Oh, okay, here we go. Will you get support from the Dem Party? I hope so. Yes, absolutely. We have been in contact through web conferencing calls and other, emails and the electronic venues a lot with the Democratic Party, and there will be news on that, but I can't comment fully. But yeah, obviously the Democratic Party will end up supporting us as much as they can. Somebody said I switched from Twitter to YouTube, I guess because they hadn't been able to comment, which I apologize. It's our first time. We're going to get it right. I promise. First time. You get to see this. Look, there's a fabulous sign right there. You get to see that. If nothing else. And look, my shirt even matches it. Yes.
Oh, no, that's definitely not what I wanted to do, though. How do I fix it?
Did you reverse it?
Guys.
Yeah, that one. That's
so that's my face. No.
For now, you can stare at it.
We tried.
We tried. That was bizarre. We're going to get it right. You're doing everything right so far. Hey, we try hard. The best thing about running as a grassroots candidate and former working class person who entered into politics, because most politicians suck, is that if you do things stupidly, people are not that surprised because we're not grifting pros. Oh, okay. Next time we know. I could either stop the live broadcast and restart it, or we'll just do it next time. Now we know. Just keep it up. I'm watching from Sweden. Hey, Sweden. All right. But it just wouldn't live tweet. Yeah, y'all can still comment on the Twitter post itself to the And we will absolutely answer questions, and we take requests. I didn't bring a guitar or banjo with me, but we'll take as many requests as we can. I suppose we should go back to politics.
Do you have any questions?
Shoot. Nope, just comments so far. Who's the main opponent? Twitter, YouTube. Trying to think of what else we haven't covered. So yeah, we've been extremely busy. Last weekend was nuts. My wife was with us when we did the protests, and we had the soft opening. That's what I was talking about before. Yep. And like I said, about a dozen people, and it was very good. And obviously, we had a large enough venue where we could remain socially distant. And of course, we had hand sanitizers and we had masks. And this is the new normal, and we're adapting as we go. So a lot of times people think we should be out doing this or that. It's like, thank you for your advice, but we're working on it and trying to keep everybody safe while doing it. We don't just talk about it. We're definitely pushing for safety. Resistance Radio is always with you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah. How do we get on Resistance Radio?
Right, you're welcome to have us on for an interview. Just contact Claire. Oh, I will give you some information while we're here and just kind of waiting on questions. It is very much a strange time to be a candidate. So, we're adapting as we go. We try to do it smart. We try to do it safe. The website is robandersonforcongress.com. Spelling is right there. The email that you can reach campaign manager Claire is Claire without an I. It's CLARE at robandersonforcongress.com. It's very simple. If you want to email me directly, it's rob at robandersonforcongress.com. You see where we're going with this. Try to keep it simple for you. Not that we doubt your intelligence, but we just try to keep it simple. And obviously on Twitter, I am at Robert Anderson 2018 because I ran in 2018, and Twitter letting you change your Twitter handle once it's been verified is like pulling Jack's teeth. So we're just, that's the name. Whereas on Reddit, I'm pretty sure I'm at Rob Anderson 2020.
And on Facebook.
The same on Facebook at Rob Anderson 2020. And on Instagram, don't look for me there. It's just pictures of my dog and cat. Now they're going to go look. It's Rob _ at Louisiana for Louisiana, all underscores in between. That's what it is. Rob Anderson for Louisiana. Your comment about marching with love is powerful. Thank you. That's exactly what it was about. That's what it felt like being there. And that's part of what, true pride that I have in my state right now. And that's why, because we were out in there. I'm telling you, it was pouring rain. There's one picture I saw from the event where, I'm in a soaking wet shirt, and believe it or not, it was not flattering. And yet it was all about the love. Everybody marched right through it. And then the first speaker prayed to stop the rain, and it did. I'm easy to find. Yeah, I am. I am pretty easy to find. I'll get with you guys to set up an interview next week. That's awesome. Can you drop a sweet beat? Not really. We're not going to go that route. I do have a TikTok. Also, I forgot to mention.
Oh my God.
You can look at me up on TikTok. I'm not going to.
I'm going to let you know your live feed on Twitter.
Settings update.
You can bring it over here and I can mess with it. Or Claire can mess with it if you want. Unless you got it. You got it. This is going to be the most informal and weird Swampside chats ever.
We had great intentions.
So that one's done. So go to a new one. Oops. Excuse me.
We'll see if you can turn the comments on.
Yeah, that's what I'm pressing that button. Let's see. It says live. What are the settings? Invite guests, connecting, capture.
Yeah.
Microphone. Nope, that's just doing it that way. How about that? I don't know what that did.
Either. It's fine. Just go live.
We're live, and let's see if people can capture now. Oh, sorry, that's the informality of the desk, and that's Ash. And that's Rob and Claire. Here we are back. Heck yeah. I don't know what that's about, but thank you. Can you discuss what your main points are, your policy platform? Sure. Who is Rob and what does he stand for? Awesome opening. Rob Anderson, former working class driller, home builder, concrete construction, IT, jack of all trades. My book is actually called John of All Trades. artist, musician, writer, had done many things, sort of made my own way my whole life. Entered into politics because I got tired of the corruption. I got tired of seeing people suffering, and politicians are arguing about things that I think are irrelevant. The wage gap has become untenable. When I was young, I worked a blue collar job, and my wife was a school teacher at a small school, and we had a home and transportation and raised 2 kids and healthcare and all of that. And on those same wages today, people only get into more and more debt, and they may be sharing a house with another. But the wage gap has gone beyond where the middle class is disappearing. And there's a lot of approaches we have for that. I'm pro union. I'm obviously pro raising the minimum wage, but I'm also pro investment into healthcare, which is people. Healthcare, I think, is a human right, and that can be politically spun many different ways. But it's really what it gets down to with all the arguments. The Republicans keep trying to take away your healthcare without a replacement plan. And I think the Democrats and Obama need to be given credit for the Affordable Care Act, but I don't think they went far enough. And all this, and of course, education costs are skyrocketing. And I know I just put my son through a 4-year engineering degree, and it cost $173,000. And we're not talking about Harvard or Yale. Education costs, wages not keeping up with the GDP. So the gap between the highest wages is not envy of the highest wages, but they're not paying their fair share as they were in the time under Eisenhower, for example, when we built half of the infrastructure in this country. One party advocates to cut spending, and that's all they want to do, but they only want to cut it from certain areas. The only things they want to cut are what actually helps people. We can cut spending in a lot of different ways. Military is a big example that people use. Stop spending money on planes and boondoggles and invest it in our soldiers. You can save a lot on the military without weakening our defensive position. We push for infrastructure and education and healthcare at the local level, and all of those things put together will make our district better. That is, in sum, what I stand for. Everything is done from a basis of human rights. All of us are created equal. We should all have equal opportunity. And a lot of times things are built, whether or not we want to face it, they are built for unequal access. What opportunities I may have had, others may have not. And we want to make sure, if we're all supposed to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, those bootstraps should be of equal length. And I just made that up off the cuff, but I think it summarizes what we're looking at. We're not, and I'm not going to use the opposition buzzwords, what they try to call us. We're none of those things. All we are is looking to regulate those who control power so that it helps people. And yes, pro-union. Of course I'm pro-union. TikTok is up. Somebody posted my TikTok.
I apologize.
I apologize. Yeah.
TikTok.
Oh, it's kind of cute. You're the one who got me on it. And
No, but I didn't think I'd create a monster.
Yeah. It's so cute. Dog videos and playing with music. It's a lot of fun. We need to flip the Senate. Absolutely true. As those who actually follow politics going on, over 400, and I don't know what the count is right now, over 400 bills have passed the House. They've gone to Mitch McConnell's desk to die. And then they blame Democrats for obstruction. And you look at it and you go, you are full of guff. Hey, I got better. I didn't yell and swear like I wanted to. We could see what the partisan obstruction is. They don't want bills going through. It was tough enough when the pandemic hit to actually get relief packages through. And then, of course, it all ended up being with all these, anonymous $500 billion assessments to business with no accountability. And here we are again. I forget what the sum total of the stimulus package was. It was in the trillions of dollars we just spent. The Senate was willing to do that so long as it went to corporations. But all those other bills, all of the legislation that the House has been working on for 2 straight years, nothing has happened. You need to flip the Senate, if nothing else, to get Mitch McConnell out of that chair as Senate Majority Leader and let us go back to legislating. Let's go back to helping the American people. And that's my piece on the Senate. Very excited about your candidacy. I hope you have enough local state party support. Yes, we do, when we're always looking for more. And that's what we're doing at this phase of the candidacy. We're absolutely pushing for local support in the time of COVID. As a Swede, your healthcare system scares me. You and me both, brother. My dad had major heart surgery, and the bill after 13 days was around 130 US dollars to cover food and the patient fee. Are you for a single payer system? Of course, I'm for. The thing about healthcare is people want you to pick a side. You got to pick one. One of the national candidates have done this. I am for healthcare for every single person in the United States, and I think there have been plans that come through that absolutely can cover the costs and actually save where we are now because you're spending on the patients instead of lobbyists and pharmaceutical advertising. So I'm not attaching myself to any one bill, but yes, I want every person in the United States.
Run into a lot when we're trying to like parse policy is that they seem to have like 3 or 4 camps that want you to use their exact language.
Right.
But at the end of the day, Rob, after he's elected, is going to have to go in there and have legislation to look at, have a policy proposal to look at. So calling it single payer, you want to call it Medicare for all. We have to all work together to put together actual legislation to pass something. You can't just pass the 3 words Medicare for all, right? So it becomes a situation where when Rob's elected,
it's a political minefield for me to answer it. Yeah.
Well, it's not only that, but no one knows entirely how to do that. And
exactly.
It's going to be incumbent upon us having people in office that will figure that out together to ever get anything passed.
That's a good way of saying it. I don't know if everybody remembers. I do. It wasn't that long ago when the Affordable Care Act was proposed and how long it took, even with the Democratic House, to actually push it through, to actually agree on it. And that was with all kinds of major legislations. And of course, the rollout, as everybody remembers, the internet rollout was a hot mess. And so, Congress is 435 people. The United States Senate is 100, and the presidency is another one. And all these people, believe it or not, to have anything actually happen, have to have at least the majority to work together. So yeah, we're going to find the best plan that serves, that not only serves everybody as best we can find, but that can actually progress and get passed. And if it doesn't get passed, I can advocate for sure everybody in the United States should have free healthcare. I love the idea. I've seen Europe, but they're not free. There's always how to do it. In the US, because of our explosive high costs, there are many ways to do it better and actually save money in the long run. And so absolutely, we're advocating for that. Everybody should have health care. Finite, that's it. No, we're only halfway through. Come on, ask me some questions, y'all. What kind of committees do you want to join? That's a good one. I spoke about that with Dave earlier. That was one of the questions. What the committees? I know definitely the 2 of the ones that Clay Higgins is on. I absolutely want to take his place on, and the one is the National Air and Space Administration, the NASA committee. I forget the exact name of it. But I've always been interested in space, and that love passed down through my son, who is going into aerospace engineering. And I think the expansion and exploration of space is how we can make true advances going forward. I don't think it's a waste of money at all. I think every penny we spend on the space race leads us to scientific advancements. For much the same reason that we explored the Earth early on. Why are you climbing, to the South Pole? Because it's there, but you don't know what you're going to learn until you get there. So NASA definitely, the Intelligence Committee, because I think it'd be nice for somebody from Louisiana to be on the Intelligence Committee who has intelligence. So we could definitely wash the taste of Higgins out of their mouth if I took that one. And I think the third
on the
one,
Intelligence Committee.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God.
And then the third one, I don't know
about transportation infrastructure.
Yes.
Definitely natural resources. They tend to stock those committees with people from districts like these because where
the natural resources one, right? Environmental. I don't know the exact committee's called. Natural Resources Committee. There you go. Definitely. Yeah, we are on the front lines of coastal erosion and global warming.
That's a different committee. I didn't know if you were talking about that. But.
No, but natural resources. I mean, we also have the marshlands and the all the natural beauty. The lumber is more than half the state. Parks and basins, and we definitely need conservation, preservation, and stewardship. And being in Louisiana, I definitely would want to be on the front lines of that. The next question was thoughts about education. I have many. We need more. Again, every time we get this question, we know how complicated it is because here, like most municipalities, most of our education funding dispersals fundraising, it all funnels through local districts. It all goes down to your school boards and what.
Well, in Louisiana, 52% of education funding comes from the Fed, and the rest of it comes from property
Taxes
for the most part, some sales taxes on the parish level.
controlled at the local level.
Yes, but I mean, as far as what you
We
can
could get
do,
more funding.
over half of the funding comes from the Fed. So
yeah, and that would be, as a good way of putting it, that would be one way we could, on a congressional level, help influence, is to get more federal funding for specific things. One of our big pushes, obviously, is for more trade schools and not just four-year universities. That's a good way to spend more education in a very specific thing that actually directly helps this district. We don't just have high school dropouts who then go work in the oil fields. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I did it myself. But I went back and got my diploma and I got educated in other things. And I do advocate that route because I know it works and you can get good middle class jobs. And we always need plumbers, welders, pipe fitters, et cetera, to build this country. So more push for the trades in addition to more TOPS funding that you could then go to the state. And we have some great universities in the state, obviously.
but general, we've talked a lot about general college affordability, whether that's having some like regulation on pricing of universities or debt forgiveness is a really big one. We have a lot of student debt in Louisiana, despite us having the TOPS program, where, I've got friends that have college loan debt and will die with college loan debt.
Right.
There's no reason you should have to keep that debt forever if you've made good faith payments. So that's some of the things we look at.
That is one of the federal issues we're looking at, is people ask about how do you feel about debt forgiveness. I'd love it, except we're talking about, I think, a $3 to $4 trillion question. Much like healthcare, there is no simple answer. But yes, I don't think people should die with student loan debt, for one thing. It should be affordable to get the degree you need, get into the field you need, and then make enough money at that field that you can then be out of debt soon after. Otherwise, you're never going to have the financial freedom to, build families and grow your own life, which is the whole idea of seeking higher education. Whether just your search for knowledge or maybe you want a better job as a doctor or lawyer, all of those are good, but not all of them pay enough. Depending on which degree you got. My mother had the same one. She got a master's in divinity, which is a great degree to be a pastor, which is what she was. But she had loan debt up until her 70s. That's how expensive it was. Not exactly a high-paying return on that degree.
University. I mean, to go to LSU for 2 semesters, if you're paying outright for tuition, you're dropping at least between $12,000 to $15,000. That's our cheap state university.
Right, and that's the local stuff. So yeah, the student loan debt is a real problem. Elizabeth Warren obviously had a great approach on that. So yes, again, go to Congress. We're advocating for the students. We're advocating for more education, and whatever we can do to get more education in this district, it can only help us all.
Preschool, we started talking about that recently.
We did talk about preschool.
Preschool program.
And also perhaps subsidized daycare, affordable daycare for families, so that maybe a single working mother or a single working father or even married can go back to school, and you can always go back to better yourself. It's not like you're 18 and out. If you didn't get a degree by then, that's it. You're stuck in blue collar. I know a lot of people who did very well at blue collar, but anything that can help people help themselves is what we're for, especially in terms of education. I think the earlier you get it and the better you get it, the more it helps you in the long run. I know it's early in the race, and besides your excellent campaign manager, have you an excellent team by your side? Yes, I do, in fact. You met Osh earlier, and also with us is Dave Longley, who's still back at his home office. We have a great team, and there are other components that are not necessarily paid members, but we have a lot of great people. There's a lot of people in Louisiana who have felt that their voices haven't been heard and are really excited that we are really putting these issues out to talk about them. We're really pushing back. And so we're getting a lot of good people from all over the state, believe me. Going to knock their socks off in the second half. We have a great run coming, good Lord willing. Let's see. The environment needs some love. Yes, it does. It's the only planet in the solar system worth living on. Do you have any thoughts on sunsetting oil and gas and phasing in other industry alternative energy jobs? What does that look like for you? How much time, et cetera? Okay. There's a lot of questions there today, but it looks like a softball for one of my favorite issues, which is alternative energies.
Specifically sunsetting the tax exemptions.
Yeah.
To stop you before you start talking about it as a whole.
Oh, you want me to answer the first question first?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Do you have thoughts on sunsetting oil and gas and phasing in other industry? Yes, I do. I have many thoughts, and I'll share a couple. The reason that oil and gas industries get such massive tax exemptions in this district is they're the ones who donate to the local politicians. That's it. It's very simple. So of course they're not even the largest industry in Louisiana. People always think they are. They're not. They're about fifth. Healthcare, education, retail are all, and now telecom. What's it called? CenturyLink is the biggest company in Louisiana now. Which is good. Alternatives. We need more tech industries. CenturyLink may be just a glorified cable installer for those who are dismissive, but it's a good working class job. There's nothing wrong with it. And that means that rural areas are getting more wired in. We're joining the 21st century, so we love it. So sunsetting the oil and gas, they're talking about the tax exemptions that oil and gas industry get to keep or build a new plant and then keep it, and then they can roll it over every 10 years.
10 seconds on this.
Yeah,
So,
well, I drink my water. Go ahead.
like your mind blown, do some, Google Louisiana Industrial Tax Exemption Program, but Louisiana on average gives about $2,000 per resident per year to corporate subsidies for the most part, multi-million or billion-dollar companies who submit an application wanting to build or expand on a plant. So maybe you're doing a small expansion. That's probably going to take you a year, but you get a 10-year exemption of 80% of your property taxes. That's a lot. And for the most part, they set up this program to create jobs. Well, it's public information that their proposals, and a lot of the time they'll be like, we're creating 6 jobs, 3 are full-time, and 1 is permanent. And it's going to cost you just
$500 million.
Sum of $500 million.
It's a huge amount. Anyway,
So,
it's a racket. Yeah.
We give more in corporate and subsidy, more revenue to these companies than we get back from them in most cases. And it's more corporate subsidized taxpayer money than any other state gives. So when they tell us they're going to move to Texas if we take away their tax exemption, my argument is, well, they're doing, I bet you're not. Like, you're just not.
The specifics are with this amount of corporate socialism that it is Louisiana policy to do. This what she summed up is not like a one-timer. This is basically every plant in the state, and they constantly, every time they update them, they do this again. They'll add a new air conditioning system and they get another 10-year exemption. Is something like, at any rate, and then they pay the politicians to then scream about socialism if you want to give something to people. So that's why that messaging we don't touch. It's a matter of how you use your tax money. You're using your tax money to help Exxon and BP, who sends their money overseas, or you're helping the people who actually live here, who work here. That's why I hate that friggin' GOP messaging and its specifics in our state because of ITEP and oil and gas tax exemptions. And which is another reason, to answer the second part of the question, alternative energies don't have a level playing field. We have a $8 billion, waiting solar market, but they're automatically at a disadvantage because we don't give them $500 million to build their plant free, 10 years tax exemption. Some people think we should give them that so they compete. And some people say, well, what if you take away the other? You need equity. And it isn't a level playing field. And that's one of the things we're definitely going to address because we want high-tech industry. We're not anti-oil. We're just pro everything. Any industry that's good for Louisiana, not to mention the environmental side effects of the oil and gas industry and cancer clusters. And there are a lot of cleanup costs involved. And that's an extenuating part of it. So it's a very complicated industry down here, but it comes down to basically they've bought all the politicians.
Yeah, we have great examples of things working now. I think it's Entergy that built a very large solar plant.
Energy.
In Plaquemine, not Plaquemines Parish, but across the river from Baton Rouge. And there's no reason that the companies that are already providing our energy utilities shouldn't be in the market of new solar plants. So that's a great thing to see, but we certainly got to Okay. We've certainly got to expand on that. There's no reason that Louisiana shouldn't lead the country in renewable energy. We have
Right.
everything we need to do it, but the political will. So
Right, 25% of the nation's energy flows through here, believe it or not, in one way or another. So a quarter of all the oil and gas that y'all use to heat your homes is due to us. So as Claire said, we kind of came up with the buzzword earlier on. It's a little cheesy, but it's true. There's no reason that Louisiana shouldn't lead the nation in energy innovation. It's what we do. Louisiana is world renowned, and I have many friends that have traveled there. Do you think the state can invest in eco-friendly tourism? Yes, it can, especially if it elects people like me and other Democrats, shall we say, who actually give a damn about the environment and alternative industries such as tourism, investing in it. Our film industry, we were booming and strong a few years ago. Yeah, I know. But nevertheless, we can still encourage alternative industries, and anything like that is good for Louisiana. A lot of those film workers who came here from all those film tax credits are still here. Now they're scrambling for work.
On the tourism side, this is Sportsman's Paradise, though, and we have people come into our state for eco-friendly tourism all the time. And
Sure.
that's, fishing and sightseeing. We've got like so many natural activities that you can come here and do.
The swamp tours where they feed the alligators marshmallows.
I would say that is, but things like that, yeah, we definitely should expand opportunities for tourism and like.
And of course, we have New Orleans, but there's a lot more to the state, as Claire was pointing out. We have a lot of nature down here. It's just who we are. A lot of parks, a lot of boating and fishing is obviously we're right on the Gulf, and we have a lot of waterways, inland waterways, a lot of fishing. The motto of the state is the Sportsman's Paradise. So we're kind of poised to be eco-friendly. I think. Again, it's a lot of our legislators are kind of locked down that they don't want to upset the balances. We want more of. We want to join the rest of the country, and we want to acknowledge that the environment and damage to the environment can be real. So that's what progress is. It's learning from the mistakes of the past and then moving forward and not repeating them. And here we do the cycle. We're just doing the same stuff over and over. How do I feel about charter schools? I actually don't recall how I feel about charter schools.
Well, man, guys, I'm gonna vouch for him here.
It is so complicated.
Tried to vomit so much information about charter schools to Rob, and I think that where we've landed is that
it's accreditation is the main thing.
That public school is going to be able to serve its students. You need to do that before moving to charters. And if you're going to have charters, they need to be held to the same standards of accountability, transparency, and student success as any other school. That means no for-profit charters. That means that no money that would have otherwise gone to a public school to serve a child is going into the hands of a charter school management company. Traditional public schools first. Charter schools and school innovation can be good, but it's only when we hold those schools to the same standards. And we've talked a lot about this because I think Rob's has not lived in many parts of the state where their charter schools are flourish, but there are some.
So yeah, when I get a question, or what throws me on that is, how do I feel about it? It's like, well, my opinion doesn't matter. It's what would I advocate for and represent, and that was my opinion on charter schools. But yes, the issue comes down to, as you said, you pointed out so eloquently and saved me there. I just didn't want people to think we hadn't talked about it and I didn't know about it. Is accreditation. A charter school shouldn't be held to a different standard, and that's the main thing. Our money that we pay for, we pay into to have our students go to school, shouldn't go to a corporate entity that then skims off X amount for corporate ownership and doesn't get to the actual students, and that's the problem. And if we can make sure that if we, whatever the total is per student, $4,300, depending, it's been different. I don't remember the exact number, it fluctuates. But if that goes to the student in a charter school the same, then, a charter school is just an alternative way to help relieve the load without putting it onto the taxpayers, except it's not taking the burden off taxpayers. We're still spending the same amount of money. So
at the end of the day, you'd really like to see like people who do so much advocacy on behalf of charter schools put that energy into improving schools first.
right. I mean, so I have a mixed opinion. That's probably my answer. But yeah, we got to look out for the students. We got to look out to make sure our money is being spent on the schools. Don't really have any specific questions. Oh, Twitter, Firth. Yeah, how you doing, Steve? I just think you're brilliant in extemporizing on any issue being thrown at you. That's a genuine gift to you. Great at. Thank you. I usually think I sound like a babbling fool, but we do the reading. Believe it or not, we actually are educated on everything on this. And when Claire gives me that deer in the headlights look, it's because we just talked about it, but we also talked about 12 other things.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to get the right trigger, like with the charter schools. Like, yes, the issue on that is people ripping off the government like anything else, and it just makes me angry. And all this things that make me angry, I have to calm it down and turn it into legislation. And I can't get angry on things, but I'm human.
Hurt when I information vomit at him right before this happens, but that's what I'm for, right?
He's here for it, and we cram a lot. But mental health care, in my opinion, I think we don't spend nearly enough on mental health care. That's a blanket statement, and then I know it sounds political, but I'll delve into it more deeply. Obviously, I think mental health care investment and healthcare overall, obviously, is a major screw up in our country. But we've stripped away what you get for your dollar. From when I was young, healthcare was kind of, you had healthcare, and the only thing that was separate was dental. And then they started stripping it down to with the rise of HMOs, the individual, mental health care was this, and cardiac care was this, and everything got subdivided into monetary denominations, and it became a hot mess. But obviously, mental health care investment pays back in the terms of people. Anytime you invest in your people, diagnose correctly, ending or lowering the rate of teen suicide, for example, or in the LGBT community, trans suicide is a major problem right now. All mental health investment is worthwhile, and we also can't forget, while we're talking about this topic, is our veterans. And excuse me, I'm scratching my foot. I know this kind of looks weird, but sorry, you get me live. My foot itches. Our veterans and PTSD and all that ties into, of course, our cannabis advocacy program. Addiction. We don't treat addiction.
VA, not just cannabis. Come on.
Oh yeah. Well, the VA. Well, I was gonna roll around with that, but I was also covering addiction. We need to treat addiction like a disease and not a crime. One that will help criminal justice reform, but also everything that improves healthcare is an investment in people. So if you treat addiction like a disease and you help people get off of, middle America right now is being racked by the opioid crisis. And of course, mental health investment helps with that. As a side note that I put in there, it was mental to myself, was VA, Veterans Administration. Obviously, we spend a lot of money sending our young men and women off to war, and when they come back, we kind of say thank you for your service, come out on Flag Day, but see you later. And their health is a real shame in this country. What we actually do in the VA is underfunded, and it's shameful that we do that to our veterans. There's no way we should be ignoring people who have literally signed their lives, put their lives on the line to serve for this country. Okay. Mental health care, I just covered that. You talked about IT infrastructure. Yeah. How about infrastructure such as roads, high-speed trains, bridges, and so on? Absolutely. Part of our infrastructure package is all of that. The famous case here in our district is the I-10 bridge in Lake Charles, which has been a political football going back and forth for years, and yet still remains, I think the number is 6% out of 100.
Yeah, 100%
in rating.
Structural sufficiency.
Structural sufficiency. It is.
I
I have to all the time. Rebuilding the country. Franklin Delano Roosevelt did it with the New Deal, and that is what our GROW Act is really focused on is if you take the time and your own time and money and you put it back into your country, it can only pay off for you. One, better roads and bridges, better for rural areas, public Wi-Fi to bring those rural areas that are underserved by commercial ventures. Bring everybody into the community. It can only be good. Poor kids, for lack of a better term, but some people are poor. Poor kids can't get internet because there's just no towers out there, and there's definitely, even where I live, there's no cable out there. They just now ran DSL. We're all the way up to 1998, and we're thrilled where I live. And so, Louisiana is a lot of the areas are underserved. So infrastructure means that. It means getting the 21st century to every part of Louisiana. And of course, would love to look at increasing, I don't know about high-speed trains.
They're logistically difficult.
It would be logistically difficult. All the trains are owned by freight companies, and it's a whole other, we're not Europe. As much as I love parts of Europe, we're not Europe. But absolutely mass transit. I see no reason why we can't have small fuel-efficient buses that serve all the districts where people don't have cars and transportation. And that helps address the food desert problem. Also, in poor rural areas or underserved, there's no supermarkets. The only thing you can shop at is maybe 5 miles down the road is a gas station where you can, your food is Twinkies and chips because that's all that's available to you. So the Dollar General is the Walmart of the South. So that's what we would say when we mean food deserts. There's definitely no Whole Foods within 2 hours of where I live. Out here in Lafayette.
Is there a Walmart in New Quincy?
No, you have to go to Sulphur for that.
See,
There's not even a Walmart where I live. We're talking. I live in the middle of nowhere. It's okay if you have a vehicle, but there's a lot of places in Louisiana you have to drive an hour or so just to shop for food. And so, yeah, absolutely, an increased focus on mass transit, making sure everybody in the state has access to services or connecting to other services. So I'd love to see more mass transit. It's proven to work. You can use it with alternative fuels. You can you can get federal grants for that. It's all good because every time your citizens have more access to more services, they don't take any extra money they haven't put in their pocket. They put it back into the economy. You're talking about more spending at grocery stores, and how can that be bad? So yeah, we're so pro infrastructure. A lot of times it seems like it's the only thing I talk about, but how about food and water security? Absolutely. Also part of infrastructure. I just was talking about food as you heard, but water, big problem here. Like a lot of the country, our water infrastructure, pipes and underground pipes were put in 50, 75, 100 years ago, and they're all coming due. And the municipalities response generally, and it's the same in where I live in DeQuincy. They just replaced them last year. They only replace them when they break. So you have a lot of aging pipes that are moving bad water, and your water treatment plants are aging, and you're talking about increased contamination of water. There's not fresh water for everybody in Louisiana, and that's a thing to address, and that's a thing we need to replace. And again, it only makes the district better.
Really would rather have not 8 parishes or whatever it is now under federal consent decree because of water quality.
I was just thinking of the article I read about one where the pipes are so bad that, I think that you can't even drink the water. And this is the real problem. This is what we need to talk about, not whatever it is Clay Higgins talking about that's not this.
Oh, he's going to sick his dogs on.
Yeah, he's going to sick his dogs on Antifa if they run through his $1 million house in the backyard, because he's got to take a private jet to Washington, and he can't be messing with Antifa.
Well,
So anyway,
he knows what
at any rate, this is what we're talking about. The real problems of real people in Louisiana. Rising tide lifts all boats, and all I mean by that is if everybody in the state at least has access to clean food, clean water, power, internet, the entire state gets better just from that alone. It's just an investment in the people. It's not enriching any one corporation, or it's not enriching government officials. It's making the state better. And how can you be against making the state better? As your population is aging, what are your thoughts on elder care? Well, I do know that it is a shameful trend in the United States, and has been for decades, that we it's sort of that wage slave mentality that you work until you retire. Then either you've saved enough to do well and you can play golf for the rest of your life, or you get shoved in a nursing home where you don't bother anyone anymore. We don't respect our age and wisdom in this country, and our mothers and fathers are often shunted into. Am I anti-fascist? Of course, I'm anti-fascist.
A given, but yeah.
That's a given. Have you met Rob?
I was making a note for Rob about Louisiana.
Yeah, I'm looking at a note.
Insane like nursing home lobby that keeps options for the aging population really slim and incentivizes you to kind of have to put patients in nursing homes because we so underinvest in home care and skilled nursing facilities, or being able to send a nurse out to your home to check on somebody, which is a better quality of life for them.
Sure.
That's a lot. It's a big lobby here. So we're, tackling that as well. But
right. I was delving in. I was being long-winded and delving into the sociological background of why we send mom and dad to but what people want to hear about is real solutions. And of course, as with anything in politics, I swear to dog, if you follow the money, you're going to find out why things are bad. And unfortunately, that is the state. I'm going to stare at Twitter for this one. That is the state of the American politics. We keep allowing politicians to raise money by any means possible to stay in office. Of course, the people who are donating that money, which are generally the rich and powerful groups with a vested interest in that politician doing what they want, then you're going to keep getting this. You're going to keep getting bad policies. You're going to keep getting things that run on ideology instead of ideas. And with that, I think we are done for the day. Thank you all for joining us.
sorry for the hiccups. We figured it out.
Yep. Sorry for the hiccups. We'll be better on Twitter Live. Overall, I think it was organic.
It was definitely.
It was organic. Thank you all very much. See you next week. The town hall next week is on.
It's on Thursday. So
It's on Thursday, so we'll still be here on Wednesday. Thank you.
And then on Thursday, we'll be on a town hall with No Dems Left Behind and Richard Ojeda. So
Yes. No Dems Left Behind. Richard Ojeda, candidate, is going to be on with us hosting our group, which is now, I believe, 11. We just added a new one. I'll do a chat at it, but just think of No Dems Left Behind, NDLB.
They're on Twitter.
Yeah, 2020 on Twitter is what I was covering. So thank you all, and good night. And there's going to be 2 different streams. Josh, can you kill the Twitter stream?